Rain ticked softly against the window pane that night in Berlin. Inside a modest living room, a young boy sat cross-legged on the floor, cradling an old leather ball. His father had just turned off the television. The national team had lost. Again. But the boy wasn't angry, he wasn't even disappointed, he was thinking. His eyes, wide and unwavering, held a kind of quiet fury. Not the kind that burns, but the kind that builds. Silent, steady, dangerous. That boy's name was Michael Ballack. Years later, his name would echo through stadiums, spoken in the same breath as legends. He would lead giants, break records, carry nations, and yet, he would never truly win. This is not a story about failure. It is a story about what happens when greatness isn't measured by the trophies you lift, but by the burdens you carry. Ballack was everything Germany had waited for. Elegant yet powerful, calculating yet passionate. A general in midfield, a storm in a bottle. And still, history remembers him not for the moments he conquered, but for the moments he almost did. 3 finals. 1 season, no trophies. A yellow card that silenced a nation, a slip, a penalty, a tear in Moscow rain. They called him the eternal runner-up. But what if they were wrong? What if Michael Ballack wasn't cursed to be second, but chosen to show us what it really means to lead in silence, to lose with dignity, to fight even when fate itself seems to laugh in your face? This isn't just about football. It's about a man who kept standing when the world expected him to fall. It's about the ache of unfinished dreams, the weight of wearing a nation's hope on your shoulders, and the quiet kind of courage that doesn't make headlines but makes history. In this episode, we dive into the untold chapters of a man whose life on the pitch reads like a Shakespearean drama: triumph, betrayal, heartbreak, and grace. And as the camera pans through old training grounds, dim-lit tunnels, and roaring stadiums that once called his name, we invite you to look deeper, because sometimes the greatest stories aren't about who wins. They're about who keeps showing up. This is the story of Michael Ballack, the man who almost had it all. And maybe, just maybe, he never really needed to. Stay with us. Before the roar of stadiums, before the spotlight, before the heartbreak, there was a boy born behind a wall. Michael Ballack came into the world on September 26, 1976, in Görlitz, a quiet town in the shadow of the Iron Curtain, East Germany. It was a place defined by rules, gray skies, and unspoken dreams. But even here, even in the hush of a divided land, a young boy dared to imagine more. His father, a former footballer himself, was the first to notice it. Not the strength, not the size, but the clarity. Ballack didn't just play football, he read it. At just 7 years old, he moved like someone who had already watched the match 100 times in his mind. Every pass was a decision. Every touch had meaning. At Chemnitzer FC, a club known more for struggle than glory, Ballack began his professional journey. There were no headlines, no chants, no bright boots. Just cold mornings, mud-stained socks, and the quiet sound of cleats against gravel. He was only 18 when he made his senior debut, but even then there was something in the way he carried himself. Tall, unbending, always watching. Teammates recall how he never raised his voice, but when he looked at you, you listened. There was something ancient in his calmness, something noble. Then came the move. In 1997, Ballack signed with FC Kaiserslautern. It was a club still trembling, from relegation but ready to rise. And rise they did. In what would become one of the greatest underdog stories in Bundesliga history, Kaiserslautern, newly promoted, went on to win the league title that very season. The country was stunned. But those who had been watching Ballack weren't. Though he wasn't yet the center of the story, he was already its spine, strong, reliable, and unmistakably present. It wasn't just the way he played. It was how he carried the team's nervous energy like it was his own. He didn't celebrate loudly. He didn't crave the camera. He was the storm behind the silence. But success, true, defining success, was still waiting. In 1999, Ballack transferred to Bayer Leverkusen, and it was there, under the weight of a jersey too heavy for most, that he would become the man Germany never forgot. Yet before we move forward, let's pause, because something about this chapter deserves more than a footnote. Michael Ballack's rise didn't happen in bright lights or viral moments. It happened quietly, in towns no one could pronounce, in training grounds too small for the press to bother with. While others danced in front of cameras, he built himself in silence, discipline, consistency, thought. And isn't that what true greatness often looks like? Not fireworks, but fire. Not the noise of ambition, but the weight of intent. Every great story has its unseen pages. The long walks home, the locker room doubts, the bruises no one claps for. For Ballack, those early years were filled with exactly that. But instead of breaking him, they carved him into something stronger. The kind of player who never needed to raise his voice to lead. The kind of man who would one day carry a nation's hopes and its heartbreaks, but we're not there yet. Next came the season that would make him a legend and leave scars that never truly healed. The year 2002, 3 finals, 3 heartbreaks, and a nickname that would follow him for life. The runner-up. King, but behind that label was a man on the edge of something unforgettable. Stay with us. 2002, to the casual fan, it was just another season. To Michael Ballack, it was everything. At Bayer Leverkusen, he had finally become the centerpiece. No longer just the engine, he was the pulse, the fire, the vision. His passes sliced through defenses like razors. His long-range shots came with the fury of something personal. He was everywhere. And for a moment it felt like destiny had finally noticed. Leverkusen were underdogs, always had been, but Ballack gave them something dangerous: belief. That season, they weren't just competing, they were contending. For the Bundesliga, the DFB Pokal, and the UEFA Champions League. It was unheard of. A small club chasing a treble. And Michael Ballack? He wasn't just in form, he was in flame. He scored 17 goals from midfield, created dozens more, captained with steel, carried with silence. Journalists began calling him the Chancellor, not for his politics, but for his command. His presence on the pitch was magnetic, inevitable. He made football look like mathematics, and he made mathematics look beautiful. But then came the heartbreak. May 4th, 2002. Final match day of the Bundesliga. Leverkusen were leading the table, 1 win away from glory, 90 minutes from rewriting their club's history. Ballack opened the scoring against Nuremberg. Hope swelled, but then, inexplicably, they collapsed. The match ended in defeat. Dortmund leapfrogged them at the finish line. Leverkusen finished second. No one celebrated second. May 11th, 2002. DFB Pokal final versus Schalke. Once again, Ballack played with fire in his boots. He scored, he fought, but the team fell short. Schalke took the cup. Another second place. Another. Dream shattered, but still, one chance remained. May 15th, 2002 Champions League final. Hampden Park, Glasgow. Leverkusen versus Real Madrid. It was a night for immortality. Ballack walked out onto the field, not just carrying his team, but the wounds of the 2 weeks before. He played like a man trying to stop time itself, dominating midfield, chasing shadows, creating space, resisting collapse. Then came that goal. Zinedine Zidane, left foot, edge of the box, a volley that looked like it was painted into the night sky. Real Madrid, 2, Leverkusen 1. And just like that, it was over. 3 finals, 3 defeats, 1 broken heart, and a nickname that would cling to Ballack like a shadow. The eternal runner-up. The media was ruthless. Headlines stung like open wounds. The nearly man, they said, always close, never there. But behind those cruel phrases, the truth was more human and more heartbreaking, because no one suffered more than Ballack. In the dressing room after the Champions League final, he sat alone. No tears, no fury, just silence. One of the staff members later said, "He looked like someone who had just lost something he could never get back." But here's the thing they never tell you. There is a kind of courage in continuing after the world has taken everything. There is a kind of grace in standing up. Not because you still believe you'll win, but because walking away would hurt more. And Ballack stood up. He didn't complain. He didn't blame. He didn't run. He returned. That summer, as the world watched the World Cup in Korea and Japan, Michael Ballack laced his boots once more. A nation bruised by failure needed a leader, and he became one. He led Germany, not with speeches, but with tackles, passes, goals. In the semi-final against South Korea, it was Ballack who scored the only goal, and moments later, received a yellow card that ruled him out of the final. The cameras caught him kneeling, not in celebration, in pain. He had sacrificed himself for his country, and again, would not be there when the trophy was lifted. Germany lost the final to Brazil. Ballack, once more, stood on the outside of history, watching it pass him by. But that's not the part we remember. We remember the man who never bowed to the weight of defeat. The man who kept walking, kept leading, kept showing up. There's a strange beauty in stories like this because sometimes the ones who never win are the ones who teach us why it matters. Michael Ballack never kissed the Champions League trophy, never raised the World Cup, never danced with the confetti falling like rain. But in 2002, when the world seemed to conspire against him, he became something more than a winner. He became unforgettable, and now with eyes hardened but not cold, he turned toward Munich, toward Bayern, toward redemption, toward the next chapter. The battle wasn't over. Not for Michael Ballack. Stay with us. If 2002 was the year of heartbreak, then 2003 was the year of rebuilding. Michael Ballack didn't just move to Bayern Munich. He walked into the Lions' Den, Germany's biggest club, a kingdom of pressure where every step echoed under the weight of expectation. But Ballack wasn't there to be crowned. He was there to conquer, silently, ruthlessly, like he always had. At Bayern, everything was different. No more underdog magic, no more almost. This was a team that had to win. Every match, every week, every title. And Ballack, he didn't just fit in. He took over. He wore the red like armor. He played with purpose, precision, and quiet fury. There was no hesitation, no time to doubt. The midfield was his territory now, and he guarded it like a wolf watching over his own. 3 Bundesliga titles, 3 DFB Pokal trophies, dozens of goals, assists, tackles, and captain's moments. But his greatness was never just in numbers. It was in the way he demanded the ball when no one else wanted it, the way he stood taller when matches got ugly, the way he pulled his team back from collapse not with speeches, but with actions. Teammates remember his stare, piercing, unreadable, not angry, not loud, just present. Opponents feared it, fans revered it. He was the kind of player who didn't celebrate goals with wild emotion. He simply turned and jogged back, eyes already thinking about the next move. Because for Ballack, it was never about the moment. It was about the mission, and while Bayern was winning, Ballack was growing, not just as a player, but as a leader. And Germany? They took notice. After the 2002 World Cup, Germany was in transition. Legends were fading, new blood was needed, and in that space of uncertainty, Ballack didn't step in. He rose. By 2004, he had become the heart of the national team, not just the captain, but the soul. He didn't smile often in interviews, didn't say much. But when he did speak, it was enough. He played like a man on borrowed time, like someone who knew how fragile the moment was, and in 2006, on home soil, he was ready to lead Germany into battle once again. The 2006 World Cup was more than just a tournament. It was a national awakening, stadiums packed with color, streets flooded with chants, and in the middle of it all, Ballack. He didn't score the most goals. He didn't win the Golden Boot, but he was everywhere, tackling, organizing, shouting, calming, holding the line when it shook, carrying his teammates forward like a general in war. Germany made it to the semifinal, but once again, fate had other plans. A stunning late goal by Italy ended the dream. The hosts were out. Ballack, now used to this pain, didn't cry. He simply shook hands, patted backs, and walked away. But everyone watching knew he had given everything. Still, he wasn't done. 2 years later, Euro 2008 arrived, and Ballack was on a mission. This time, he wasn't carrying a young team. He was the team. In the semi-final against Turkey, he rose like a titan to head in the winning goal, his face clenched in fury, in relief, in something deeper than words. Germany were in the final, and Ballack, once more, stood one match away from rewriting history, but across from him stood Spain, Xavi, Iniesta, Torres. A new empire rising. The match was slow, methodical, and brutal in its precision. Spain passed with surgical grace. Germany fought back with grit and muscle, but in the 33rd minute, Fernando Torres broke through. One chance, one touch, one goal, Spain 1, Germany 0. The final whistle blew, and Michael Ballack, runner-up, again. It almost felt like a cruel joke, by now. But look closer, watch the moment after the loss. As his teammates collapsed in frustration, Ballack stood, not with bitterness, not with anger, but with resolve. He didn't lift the trophy, but he lifted them, his team, his country, his story, because here's what no medal can show: the burden of leading when it hurts, the strength of showing up even when it never ends in celebration, the unglamorous, exhausting, lonely art of consistency. Ballack never had the romantic ending, no last-minute goal, no fairy tale finish. But maybe, just maybe, he didn't need one, because what he gave was greater. A model, a mirror, a man who never asked to be adored, but became unforgettable. As his time at Bayern drew to a close, whispers began. A new chapter, a new league. England was calling, and with it, one final chance to chase the one thing that always slipped away. By the summer of 2006, Michael Ballack had done everything a player could in Germany, except lift the one trophy that always danced just out of reach. And so, at 30, with nothing left to prove at home, he crossed the Channel. London, Stamford, Bridge, Chelsea. It was a different world, grittier, faster, more ruthless. But Ballack didn't come for comfort. He came for the Champions League. Chelsea under Jose Mourinho were a machine, ruthless, efficient, hungrier than ever. And in Ballack, they found a piece of steel wrapped in silence. Not flashy, not loud, but formidable. He arrived on a free transfer. No transfer fee, no marketing campaign, just a handshake, a press conference, and a storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. His debut, a bruising, tight Premier League fixture. No goals, no assists, just tackles, interceptions, direction. This was Ballack in England. He didn't need to dazzle. He anchored. Soon he became the engine beside Frank Lampard, the two forming a midfield that wasn't always poetic, but always terrifying. At Chelsea, Ballack didn't score as often, but when he did, it mattered. A penalty in a crucial match. A header when things looked lost. Always at the right time, always when the team needed. And still, the old theme lingered. Injuries came. Critics questioned his pace. Some said he was past his peak. But those who truly watched, really watched, saw a man controlling chaos. Then came 2008. Chelsea's journey to the Champions League final wasn't easy. Barcelona, Liverpool, tension, sweat. a blur of nights when victory hung by a thread. And Ballack? He was relentless. A general in blue. The final was set, Chelsea versus Manchester United. Moscow, the rain, the stage, the moment. It was Ballack's chance, finally, to rewrite the curse. That night, the rain poured like fate had something to say. Chelsea went behind early. Cristiano Ronaldo, a header, 1-0, but they clawed back. Frank Lampard equalized. The match bled into extra time. Ballack played like a man possessed, tracking back, surging forward, ordering, demanding. He was everywhere. It felt inevitable. Then came penalties. As the players lined up, Ballack stood silent, eyes fixed. He converted his kick, calm, controlled, clinical. Then, John Terry stepped up, 1 goal away from history, and he slipped. The ball hit the post. The dream cracked. United won. Chelsea collapsed. Ballack stood frozen, his hands on his hips, mouth tight, blinking against the rain. Not again. Not again. It was a photo seen around the world. Ballack, drenched, staring into the dark sky as if asking a question he knew would never be answered. For some, it was just a loss. For Ballack, it was destiny mocking him one final time. But unlike others, he didn't break. He stayed at Chelsea, fought harder, lifted trophies, Premier League, FA Cup, League Cup. He brought structure, maturity, and steel to a team full of stars. He wasn't the highlight reel, he was the foundation. Off the pitch, he was the same, reserved, respectful, professional. No scandals, no showboating, just presence. And presence is a powerful thing. In 2010, after 4 intense seasons, his Chelsea journey came to a quiet end. The club didn't offer a new contract. Ballack returned to Bayer Leverkusen. But it wasn't a fairy tale homecoming. He was older, slower. Injuries took their toll. Minutes dwindled. The magic faded. And in 2012, without fanfare, without farewell banners, Michael Ballack retired from professional football. No goodbye tour, no final bow, just silence, like the man himself. But here's what they forget. He played over 600 professional matches, scored more than 100 goals, led Germany through 3 tournaments, played in 5 major finals, and still walked away with dignity. Not every hero needs a parade. Some just need a moment of stillness. And Ballack? He earned that. He didn't lift the Champions League, but he lifted teams. He didn't kiss the World Cup, but he carried nations. He wasn't crowned a king, but he ruled with grace. So now, when young players speak of leadership, they speak of Ballack. When fans speak of heartbreak, they remember him, not with pity, but with awe. Because here was a man who played for more than trophies. He played for the weight of the shirt, for the silence of respect, for the beauty of the game itself. And, perhaps, that's the kind of legend we need more of. He didn't win the storybook ending, but he was the story. And now, as the lights dim on the pitch and the camera pans away, we ask, what does it mean to be remembered? Is it about silverware? Or is it about silence? Yeah, that echoes? Michael Ballack never needed the last word. His career was the sentence. There are names in football that sparkle with trophies. And then, there are names that echo in silence. Michael Ballack never had the fairy tale ending. No final kiss on the Golden Cup. No slow-motion moment of triumph under falling confetti. But perhaps that's what makes him unforgettable, because what he gave us wasn't just football. It was something deeper, something rarer. Ballack taught us that not all legends wear medals. Some carry weight. Some absorb the losses so others can believe again. He wasn't perfect. He didn't chase the spotlight. He didn't cry for statues or songs sung in his name. But he showed up. Every single time. In finals. In heartbreaks. In silence. He showed up when others couldn't. And that is legacy. Ask the fans who grew up watching him. Ask the teammates who stood beside him. Ask the children who wore his number, dreaming not of fame but of being enough. He wasn't the man who always won. He was the man who always stood. And now, years after his final match, we still speak his name, not for the things he held, but for the things he held on to: grace, leadership, and quiet strength. In a world obsessed with glory, Michael Ballack gave us something more honest. A mirror. He reminded us that even in failure there is honor. Even in defeat there is dignity. And sometimes, second place holds a kind of beauty that first never understands. Because Ballack didn't need a trophy to be great. He was the trophy. The silent hero. The storm beneath the calm. The man who taught us that falling short doesn't mean falling behind. So when we tell his story, let it not be a tale of what was missing, but a tribute to what was never lost. Heart, courage, and the kind of leadership that never asks for applause but always deserves it. Michael Ballack didn't win football's greatest prize, but he won something else. Us. And this? This is only the beginning, because next time, we go deeper, into the private life behind the public mask, the love stories, the regrets, the battles fought off the field, the moments he almost quit, and the one conversation that changed everything. The untold chapters of Michael Ballack are still waiting. So stay with us, because the next story will make you see him like never before. Coming soon.